Welcome back. You're watching this special transmission on the post-Pahalgam false flag operation. All that is ensued. We've been covering that from for different hours under different names of anchors, and we've been discussing Pakistan's narrative as far as all of this is concerned, and how India has been misusing this false flag operation for its own uses and trying to destabilize or put a bad name to Pakistan, but of course it has not succeeded, whether it be on the international front with the different diplomats asking for credible proof as to Pakistan's involvement in this false flag operation, but nothing tangible has come out, and more and more, and there are so many different angles to it that we can continue for the whole day talking about this, but we have guests to discuss these very topics with them. We've been joined in the studios. We continue to be joined by Dr. Munawar Hussain, who's a foreign affairs expert, and we have also been joined by Dr. Salma Malik, who herself is an international affairs expert. We'll begin with you, Dr. Salma, now that you've joined us recently. This internal strife in India with politicians, people questioning Indian decisions post-Pahalgam, and 2 units of the Indian Army firing upon each other. There seems to be a certain disarray within the Indian public as to how to handle that and how to move forward, because there's so much of falsehood in all of that, because the whole basis is so hollow that it has to fall into different pieces as far as this is concerned. How do you see this internal strife, and in your point of view, in light of India's repeated violations and propaganda, how can Pakistan more effectively mobilize international opinion to uphold the sanctity of our country and of treaties such as the Indus Water Treaty?
Thank you so much, Umar, for having me in the show. Number one, what Pakistan, the actions that the state has undertaken so far, the 10-point agenda that unfolded within 48 hours of the Pahalgam incident, is something that is precisely how the government should have worked. Not creating hysteria, not creating panic, anxiety, simply coming out, and it was so fascinating that the fact that anyone and everyone, whether they were the government, they were the military, they were the civilians, it was the informed civil society, it was the disinformed civil society, the common man on the road, everyone at the first instant knew that this was a false flag operation. And no one had to tell anyone, because the telltale signs were so obvious. I mean, the modus operandi with India, it has such a strong signature to it that now those of us who kept on saying that this attack was had some origins in this country or that country can very well imagine that India was actually masterminding everything and killing its own people, killing its own soldiers, killing its own BSF people to get personal mileage, personal political mileage, and gain some very small agenda items. However, I won't say that what Modi has done is going to get him small agenda items. It is beyond personal, and the repercussions of this is something that will keep on surfacing and echoing from time to time.
It is a slow boiler that I think is going to boil up and eventually implode. I mean, this is what I feel. But I'm going to continue with you on civil society, but I have a very interesting question to ask Dr. Munawar Hussain. How do you feel this killing of Sikh soldiers by their own forces could impact India's military cohesion, especially in sensitive areas such as the IIO-JK?
I mean, always we say in international politics that when we measure the power of 2 nations, we always see the objective elements and subjective elements. And as far as subjective elements is concerned, the cohesiveness and morale to fight a war and will to fight a war plays a very important role. And in this regard, I think Indians, they are losing the grounds. And frankly speaking, because of internal rifts within India, whether it is in Nagaland, because of Nagaland, the Gorga regiment is not ready to fight, because of problem in the Punjab of India, the Sikh, with the Sikh community, they are not ready to fight with against Pakistan. So therefore, their Indian military capability is very weak as far as political cohesiveness is, military cohesiveness is concerned, and they don't even have the political cohesiveness. But let me explain 2 very important instruments that they are using against Pakistan. One is propaganda, because it is the continuity of my previous answer. They are using propaganda as a tool to further their policy objectives.
That is true.
And I mean, this Pakistanis, they did not discover the EU disinfluence. These are the European nations who they discovered it, how Indians they are involved propagating against Pakistan and giving the false information regarding Pakistan to defame it. Second is terror financing. I mean, there are many reports and they believe that 74% of terror financing in Asia is from India. And therefore, they are supporting the militant networks in Afghanistan, whether it is BLA, TTP and BLI. And we captured Kalbhushan Yadev's network. And I have a latest data that from 2015 to 2024, almost 5,720 Pakistanis, they are killed because of these terrorist activities. And it is 500% more than the Indian casualties or deaths. So therefore, I mean, these are staggering. But because of these policies, Indians, they are facing negative fallouts. For instance, within India, if we see their society is extremely polarized, we never saw such a situation. I mean, the Muslims, the Dalits, the Sikhs, Nagaland, the people of Nagaland, Mizoram,
True.
Kashmiris, number one. Number two, they are isolated in the region. I mean, we could not imagine the countries like Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, such a small nations. Their foreign policies were framed by India. Now there is India out movement there. What happened in Bangladesh, we know there is a change in Sri Lanka. So they are isolated at the regional level. Third very important implication is the bad image. Now Indians, they have a misperception that they have become a major power. They are not major power because their behavior is not responsible behavior. Moreover, John Mearsheimer, he argues that there are two building blocks to be declared as a major power. One is economic wealth, other is the robust population. You have a robust population, but you don't have economic wealth. So still you are not in a position to be known as a major power in the world politics. Moreover, their misperception is that Pakistan is weak because there is a political fragmentation, because of economic weaknesses. And they forgot that Pakistani peoples always they are united whenever there is a crisis or conflict or war with India. So I think this policy is not paying off positively to the Modi regime. Rather, they are failed, and now there is a news that within the BJP party there is a rift, and it is quite possible that other nomination may come for prime ministership.
All right. Oh, this is huge news. Thank you very much, Dr. Munawar Hussain, to have joined us in this very transmission. We'll continue to, of course, have your point of views in the days to come. Shazia Anwar Cheema, Dr. Shazia Anwar Cheema joins us online. She's a foreign affairs expert. Dr. Shazia, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Shazia, you know, how, in your point of view, can Pakistan proactively counter all the Indian narratives that you have been hearing, we all have been hearing, that may use such internal military failures as a pretext for false accusations or escalations against Pakistan? You've seen how the rifts have been happening within the Indian armed forces as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a very sad incident, but it's a huge opportunity for Pakistan as well. That Modi has trapped himself. Now he has challenges on three fronts like China, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and his foreign policy is a total failure. So the steps, like the follow-up steps for this terrorist attack, was again premature, and they backfired, and we have all seen that how badly they are still damaging the reputation of India, and also also instigating further polarization in Indian society. Let's take the example of Indus Water Treaty. So the cancellation of Indus Water Treaty is not only time and resource consuming, but it's also a very bad diplomatic move. Imagine that India stops water and create a humanitarian crisis in Pakistan, and then international powers and United Nations have to intervene in that. What will happen to that bubble which has been inflated with fake narrative and propaganda and it somehow existed. And what about that ego bubble if it burst when international powers will be intervene? And that also gives the opportunity to Pakistan to cancel the Shimla Accord. So Indus Water Treaty is a thing which is non-implementationable. Shimla Accord, we can implement that. And there are very important three clauses in Shimla Accord. Like first one is both the parties will recognize Bangladesh. So leave that aside. Bangladesh, we don't have a problem. Bangladesh is recognized by United Nations as well. But so far, the second two clauses are concerned, they are in favor of Pakistan. Like number two, both the parties have to respect or abide by the LOC line of control. So now we have the chance to move even further, and we can do that legally. And the third point is that both the parties will solve their problem bilaterally. But now we can involve Azerbaijan, China, Turkey in reference to the Shimla Accord. So these things, these moves are not only premature, they are not even properly thought about, and that is being discussed in Indian media as well. What Modi wants, he wants to isolate Pakistan, he wants to tag Pakistan as a terrorist state, and we have seen.
Dr. Shazia, we will continue our conversation. We have to go to a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and we continue our conversation on all that has ensued post the Pahalgam false flag operation. We continue to be joined by Dr. Salma Malik, also by Muhammad Umar, who's our defense analyst, and of course Shazia Anwar Cheema, who's a foreign affairs expert. I'll come to you, Dr. Salma Malik. Abdul Basit, our former ambassador to India and a very seasoned diplomat. One of, as you yourself were telling me, most hated diplomats in India because of how he took the stance for Pakistan. When you look at how he confronts the Indian jingoism, yes, and this war mongering and this desperate attempt to somehow find loopholes in Pakistan's perspective, how do you see Pakistan standing firm on its ground with facts and figures on its back?
The point that I was alluding to earlier, Pakistan has taken a very decent and reasonable way of looking at it. In response to the hysteria, the loud noise created by India, trying to muffle all sounds of sanity, being reasonable through these loud shouting, the Arnab Goswami phenomenon, the India Today phenomenon. I mean, this is like crazy. They don't want to listen to you. And the very fascinating thing is, once by mistake I ended up in the show and I realized that they switch off your volume.
Yes.
So you keep on saying what you need to say, but they're on their end, they're not listening. And there's this unilateral shouting match that is happening. So Pakistan has been very decent. Why? The reason being that the stakes are too high. We are two nuclear weapon states. If India is being irresponsible through its absolutely unreasonable leadership, I wouldn't say that he is irrational. He is a very sane and rational actor who loves to take risk and getting away with them because he has an international environment which is quite conducive to him. So he does what he does, and then he sees how much that chess game and the bluff worked, right? So having said that, Pakistan knows what is at stake. If India and Pakistan end up fighting with one another, God forbid, number one, Pakistan is not going to back out. We'll have a better response. We have a full, flexible, full spectrum deterrence available at our disposal, from the conventional to the conventional, conventional to strategic, low tactical, all out strategic weaponry. Everything is lined up, and we won't be deterred from using that. But we want to have this self-constraint primarily for the reason that the people who would be killed won't be soldiers. They won't be just the enemy people, they would be humanity. people on both sides of the border, and that is something that Pakistan does not want to do. However, India is more than willing to sacrifice its own people,
Yes.
which it keeps doing from time to time
Yes.
through these false flag operations, and they're pretty reckless about it. And just profile the people who died in this particular strike. How many of them were Hindus? How many of them were non-Muslims? Many of them were Muslims. Now they're coming up with this false notion that, oh, I recited the kalma and became a Muslim. How do you know the kalma? I mean, I won't remember my name if I was facing the barrel, let alone holy verses in Arabic.
That is so true.
I mean, all of this is
have to
such a
continue this
propaganda.
conversation, but of course we have to again go to a short break. We welcome you back in the Situation Room, where we are discussing the post-Pahalgam false flag operation, situation, how things have ensued, how India is manipulating its media, its people, its narrative against Pakistan with no basis whatsoever. We continue to be joined by our three guests, Dr. Salma, Malik, Muhammad Umar, and Dr. Shazia, Anwar, Cheema. Salma, Malik, we were discussing about the Indian strategies and how you were explaining to us a little bit about that. Would you kindly continue our discussion?
Yeah, you see, one aspect of course is creating all this loud noise and trying to muffle voices of reason and sanity and rationality, and that is going to happen. The target audience primarily for the Indians are their own people and the diaspora, and of course the audience which is viewing them, watching them as to what they do with time to time, sitting abroad, the Western audience. The second interesting factor is, especially when you look at what has happened today and several other factors, falsifying stuff on the television, that they are manufacturing evidence as the hour goes, right? They first did it, and now they are planting evidence and they are planting the narrative to make it conducive to what they want to have being said. And many a times people don't agree with them. Most of the time people don't agree with them.
True.
Also because of the fact that there is still a very small number, a very small percentage, but there still exists a rational, sane Indian civil society and Indian media that looks into the actual reality of the picture. And this has happened before at the Chatti Singhpura incident,
Yes.
when the Al Farhan kidnappings
When Bill
happened.
Clinton was there.
When Bill Clinton came, the Chatti Singhpura thing, when Amarnath Yatra happened, 2019 happened, and now this. So they try to keep doing this, what they have to do. I mean, no one talks about what happened to the Samjhauta Express, no one talks about what happened to the Jafar Express. What we talk about is Mumbai. And what is tragic actually in Pakistan is also the fact that we also look at the meta narrative which is in circulation. The Disinfo lab that was exposed spoke volumes of the type of false propaganda and misinformation that was below, that was around us. We were breathing that misinformation.
Agreed.
And I think this is high time, especially this particular moment when the Pakistani media, the Pakistani people, they actually try and understand how this entire agenda works. They have already banned several of Pakistani YouTube accounts, many other social media accounts for those people who were
And they'll
talking
continue to
and
do so
questioning,
with
and
the
they'll
passing
continue
of
doing it because you have a huge number, and Umar mashallah would be able to speak about it far better as to how much ingress you have of the Indian born citizens or the Indian origin citizens into the Western media, and how they are controlling this entire thought process. And we willfully become a victim to that, and we don't even realize that what we are talking, we are walking and talking their walk and talk. So we really need to be careful as to what is being said and what is being spun.
That's a very important point. This ingress of the Indian diaspora, they are also manipulating on their own end, on the small front, on the large front, or whatever front they can. How can Pakistan, and how should Pakistan counter this narrative?
Omar, from the very beginning, I always say stick to the facts.
Yeah.
Don't get emotional.
So true.
Be knowledgeable, know what the subjects are. And I can give you an example not related to terrorism, how they've driven the international media to the narrative of partition of Pakistan. You know, this idea that there was an Indian state and that Pakistan was torn off after 1947, that's false. There was never an Indian state. It was independence gained by Pakistan, just as it was independence gained by India from the British. And you can see that whether it's whichever international media, they use partition as their narrative. So that's an example of how over time the diaspora or the Indian origin Americans or Europeans have been able to be successful with the ideology and that they want to spread.
All right. Shazia and Cheema, you continue on us, I hope. When you look at what the Pakistani politicians are doing, sorry, the Indian politicians rather, let's put it that way. We'll come to the Pakistani politicians later. How the Indian politicians are doing, how they are also criticizing, like Mr. Saifuddin's criticism, open criticism to Modi, how there are questions being asked by the Indian government on the veracity or the accuracy, on the legality of all the decisions that it took and in the wake of this false flag operation, and also the whole narrative of this Pahalgam operation or this Pahalgam incident that happened, where a lot of lives were lost, but to what extent, to what to which reason. I'd like to understand from your perspective as to how the world sees what has happened in India post Pahalgam, and although we have seen no strong reaction from the world, but what will the eventual global reaction be vis-a-vis India?
While being in Europe, I don't see anybody discussing this incident. So it's not like on the major agenda of the international politics, but we have just tweets and the official statements of the international leaders, and they have condemned the terrorist attack, which we all should. And they have not pointed the finger toward Pakistan that what India wanted. And that's a huge diplomatic failure for India, because that was the purpose of this attack, that to tag Pakistan as a terrorist state and then let the international leaders reiterate that Pakistan is a terrorist state and there has to be something done about that. So in international media, this incident is not getting the coverage what we are expecting and how we are discussing, because it is happening around us. So we are discussing, and it is the most important incident around us. But it is a huge, in my opinion, it's a huge foreign policy failure for India, and domestically it's a political failure, because India has isolated itself in the region, and the hubris is that the entire politics and foreign policy of India is based on the Muslim hatred and primarily hatred toward Pakistan. And look at the situation that the only and the best friend India has right now is Taliban. Bangladesh don't want to have any relation with India. Pakistan, China, we are eternal enemies, and other SAARC countries, Nepal, Sri Lanka. Nobody has good relations with India, but the only party which has some sort of relations with India are Taliban, and that was the farce of the day, and that's also exposed the reality that how India is conducting its foreign policy and how they are navigating their politics domestically, and that could be the reason that Jaishankar still has not stated anything officially about this incident, because I think he has nothing to say, and there is a huge polarization even in between the circle of the power corridors of India. Even RSS has not said officially about this incident. So there is a huge polarization. People are asking questions. You cannot do that false flag operation like again and again and again, and then just imagine that people will get along with this. Even with the Chhattisgarh incident, Bill Clinton wrote in his book that all those people could have been saved if I would have cancelled my trip. So people know what's going on, and India cannot just put everything in one basket and then just start blaming Pakistan on that, and for the domestic, the civil rights and the international problems. For every problem, that one scapegoat, and that scapegoat is Pakistan, Pakistan, Pakistan. Nobody is buying it, but that gives Pakistan an opportunity to put the Kashmir on the front burner again and involve international community, and also go for like United Nations Charter 4.2. We have every right to file a complaint about India, that India is accusing us falsely, unprecedentedly, and without any proof, and also threatening us for a kinetic war. So there is a clause in United Nations Security Council that we have every right now, after all these media hysteria, we have enough proof to go into the United Nations Security Council and put the load of proving the incident, that whether or not we are guilty to the India, and India has to provide something about that. And this is a very good opportunity for us to tell the broader world and international media and international community that how we are being treated in this region by the India and all other countries as well. We can also, for the Indus Water Treaty, we can also go for United Nations Helsinki Charter. And we can, it is a treaty and it cannot be cancelled by any means bilaterally, but we can also...
That calls for it.
Sorry, you were saying something.
Saying, Dr. Shazia, there is no clause in the Indus Water Treaty that calls for suspension.
Of course, and we can also like reinforce it by Helsinki Accord, which also says that the resources, the natural resources, the upper riparian and lower riparian, you cannot create a humanitarian crisis. And I am 100% sure that India is not going to create a humanitarian crisis, because India has, as I was telling earlier, that India has a very inflated bubble of ego, and all the air in that balloon is due to the fake narrative and propaganda worth millions and trillions of dollars, and India cannot risk that. But it's very fortunate for Pakistan, and it's very unfortunate for India that now it is under very minute scrutiny, that what is practically going on, that you are blaming us for a terrorist attack.
All right. Dr. Shazia, we'll continue our conversation with you. We have to take you, because she was talking of scrutiny, there's also an internal scrutiny within India, and we've talked about that, but we wanted to show you the clip of the former Congress Minister Saifuddin, who is also criticizing Modi. Let's have a look and then we'll come back.
I have a feeling that the water cannot be diverted. This water treaty has survived the wars between India and Pakistan. And Pakistan's situation will be seen minutely by the international community, because it's a lifeline for Pakistan. And I have a feeling that better sense will prevail. Pakistan's word should be accepted, that it is not involved in Pahalgam. Pakistan takes the position it is not involved in Pahalgam is a tragedy. My feeling is that let us accept Pakistan's word.
Let us accept Pakistan's word. Very difficult words for India, I'm sure, at this moment. Dr. Salma, water being a critical lifeline for Pakistan's agriculture, drinking needs, how serious is this threat posed by India's repeated water weaponization, or should I call water terrorism in one another way, and these tactics that it is, putting into play, and what measures could or should Pakistan take to counter this?
Right. I think it's both. It's both weaponization as well as terror, water terror. India has actually, what struck the chord for Modi here was the fact that if he talks about stopping Pakistan's water, drying it up, something that Sardar Patel always envisioned, and Nehru had to tell him that let the British go and then they will die their own slow death. The Pakistanis will die their own slow death. So this is something which is not only Modi's dream. Many secular leaders have also dreamt that dream, and they haven't been able to do that. But of course, at that time there was no Indus Treaty. There is one now. There are two things. Either they flood us when it is not required, or they stop
they
the
did
water, or
recently
they
with the
divert
Jhelum.
the water. Exactly. So, I mean, this is also psychological tactic being played by India. We said it, and here you go. We are giving you a prelude as to how the flooding will take place. So to just sense what Pakistan's reaction would be. And this is actually like, you know, they're virtually rewriting a book on psychological tactics and how to win the war through psychological war hysteria and all that stuff. So this is actually a fascinating clinical study in that regard. But God forbid, if something of that sort happens, and India ends up doing this unilateralism, except for declaring it, there are several courses for Pakistan to undertake. We can go there. We can do lawfaring. We can go to the World Bank. We can go to the UN. We can revert to several non-conflictual fora, which are meant to settle such problems. And we can paint the picture properly, and you cannot link that, oh, because Pakistan and quote unquote was involved in Pahalgam, so that is equal to stopping the Indus Water or walking away from the Indus Water Treaty. They cannot do this. So when they do this, I think Pakistan, at this point, we should be putting our heads together and looking at all possible avenues and exhaust all kind of debate as to, if they do this, what response should we give? How about doing checkmate when it comes to these factors? And I think we have to go beyond rhetoric. One more thing that I would say, and that is educating the common person as to what the Indus Basin Treaty was all about, why what India is saying is not the right thing, what exactly is the right stuff, and how people should respond to this. Because, I mean, this is a world of social media, and the social media shows several things. The social media also already has shown the Indus in a lot of flood. It has already shown people getting trampled under torrents and all of that stuff. So, usually this is how the hysteria is created, and we know who is controlling the social media here, right? So, they will start doing that blitzkrieg as well. So, we have to actually decide that where we are doing lawfaring, where we are doing statesmanship, we also need to actually educate a very huge target audience, which is our own, and educate them as to what this entire situation is all about and how we are going to deal with it. And there has to be a level of transparency here.
All right. Speaking of levels of transparency and responses, let's talk about the international responses, Umar. We've had the response from the US, we've had one from China, we've had one from the UN. We've also had other reactions, but all of them asked for both the parties to, you know, resolve this and they look for peace. You know, it's a very muted or maybe a very neutral statement that has come with nobody taking any side. There is a deliberate attempt, should I say, by the international bodies for both Pakistan and India to thwart this out amongst themselves. But India is not willing. In fact, the truth is quite the opposite, as has been very apparent in the past as well. Whenever Pakistan has tried to put an olive branch, extend an olive branch, it has never been met with the same response. India has never been willing to come to talks on whichever pretext, because it knows that the first agenda online will be Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and this is what it has been using as a tool for its warfare, whether it be social warfare or other kinds of warfare. Under the current circumstances, how responsible should the global bodies be, whether it be the UN, whether it be the US, China or other countries?
That is a great question, Umar. I think the response has not been muted. I think it's been a very responsible response. I think Pakistan can bring India to the international forum. So we have, if it's related to the Indus Water Treaty, there is legal arbitration built into the framework of the treaty that we can utilize. As I've said previously, the mass arrests of Kashmiris, which I misspoke earlier, I said 1,000, they've arrested 2,000 innocent Kashmiris. That is illegal. That is against the convention, against Geneva Convention on Occupied Territories. So what Pakistan can do diplomatically, which it is currently doing, is continue to document these cases and bring them to these international bodies and force India to the table, because they are signatories. They are they're a part of the United Nations. They are part of the Indus Water Treaty. They're part of other international frameworks that they've agreed to. So we now, and I'm parroting Dr. Cheema now, we have this opportunity right now to force them to come to the table and have these discussions. So I think it is a win for Pakistan, unlike in the past that the international community has been very responsible with their response and did not rush to India's pointing fingers towards Pakistan.
All right, that of course should be Pakistan's point of view and Pakistan's machination as far as how to move forward is concerned. We will move to Dr. Shazia, but before that we have to show you this small clip of an Indian soldier who is stating what is actually happening within India. We've said that we've also talked about the internal strife within the Indian army as well, because there is an apparent, a backlash or an apparent misunderstanding or apparent, confusion as to how the Indian government is taking this forward. Let's watch this clip and we'll come back.
कि भाईचारा क्यों निभा रहा है 27-28 लोगों की मौत हो गई है, लेकिन हमारे जो मीडिया के पिल्ले हैं वो लोगों को सिर्फ ये दिखा रहे हैं जिससे उनको भड़काया जा सके। हमारे मीडिया दिखा रहे हैं कि वो लोग आए, धर्म पूछकर गोली मार दिया, जो बात सही भी है, मैं भी इस बात से एग्री हूँ, लेकिन जो लोग वहाँ पर फंसे हुए थे, 2000 से भी ज्यादा लोग वहाँ पर फंसे हुए थे, उनको ऊपर से नीचे कौन लाया? जो घायल हुए थे, जो चोटिल हुए थे, उनका वहाँ से रेस्क्यू करने वाले भी कश्मीर के मुसलमान ही थे। ये सारी चीजें मीडिया लोगों को क्यों नहीं दिखा रही है? क्योंकि अगर ये सब दिखाए तो लोगों का जो अंदर आग लगा हुआ है वो शांत हो जाएगा। यहाँ तक वहाँ जो रहने वाले मुस्लिम है उन लोगों को फ्री में पानी दिया, फ्री में खाना दिया, फ्री में रहने को होटल दिया, कुछ लोगों को अपने पैसे से किराया करके उनको घर भी भेजा। बल्कि हमें ये पूछना चाहिए कि वहाँ पर जो चेक पोस्ट लगा हुआ था उसको क्यों हटाया? अगर वो चेक पोस्ट होता तो आज जो लोग मरे हुए हैं वो जिंदा होते और अपने परिवार के साथ ही होते। भाई मैं भी हिंदू ही हूँ, लेकिन मैं वो बात बता रहा हूँ जो रियलिटी है, मैं वो बात नहीं बोलूँगा जिससे लोगों को भड़काया जा सके।
All right, you've just heard this Indian soldier saying what is quite apparent as far as Indian media is concerned and how this provocation is happening, is warmongering. And we've also seen the different clips, whether it be of our former minister, former ambassador to India, Abdul Basit Saab, or so many others who have been ridiculed openly. Dr. Shazia and Cheema, this is my last question to you, and that concerns how things are going to move forward. What do you foresee is going to happen in the coming days as far as India's moves or Pakistan's moves are concerned? What's your take on that? Being in Europe, I'd like to understand that perspective. All right, Dr. Shazia, we can't hear you properly, so we'll have to bid you farewell. We'll come back question a bit later. Thank you very much to both of my guests also here. But I'd like to ask one last question to you, Dr. Salma, and I want a very short answer. How important is national unity and coordination in effectively countering Indian aggression at all levels?
Absolute, critical, most definite. If there is no national unity, a country cannot win war. And I think if we didn't have national unity at any point, every vibrant country has a difference of opinion. People are of all shades. Fortunately, India's false flag operation has killed any such issues within Pakistani body politics.
It brought everybody
the civil,
together.
the military, the public, everyone is on the same page. They unanimously, on a cue, ended up saying this was a false flag operation. No one told anyone to say that. It was a very spontaneous, right there in the face response. And everyone stands united on this thing. And this is a point that India needs to understand. We don't need to kill people as part of a BSF propaganda to garner a second election bid. We don't need to falsify evidence and manufacture evidence to make people agree to a minor election. We are a country, we stand together, and we will stand together.
All right. Umar, your last comment on this very question.
On this very question, I would say that again, everything that Dr. Salma said, I agree with. National unity is the most important thing. And I think if India's accusation, I was listening to the interview with our High Commissioner Abdul Basit Saab, if it was not false flag, if it was negligence, then India needs to come out and admit that it was negligence on their part. Because what they're doing by suppressing the voices of their citizens and those that are sane in their government is they're creating civil unrest within India. So there could potentially be spillover in the future because of that. So it is very dangerous what India is doing right now. If they cannot show any evidence, they must admit to the negligence of their security forces to make sure that there isn't any further civil unrest within the country. The mass arrest of Kashmiris, the pointing finger at Muslims, attacking, burning Bangladeshi flags and Palestinian flags will not do anything other than not only unify every citizen in Pakistan, but unite all friendly countries and make them run towards Pakistan and support Pakistan.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Salma Malik. Thank you very much, Muhammad Umar, to have joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, as you have very well have understood how things are moving along and how Pakistan stands united on its stance and how Pakistan is on the right track and India, unfortunately, is on the wrong. Our Prime Minister has said, let's have an investigation by neutral persons. Let's have that. Let's see what India has to say about that. Allah Hafiz.